Hello, my name is Steve Nalepa. I am a professor at DubSpot. I teach our Ableton Live curriculum there. I'm also a musician, producer, part of the Team Supreme crew, a bunch of different projects, and I want to talk to you today a little bit about AeroMIDI and using it together with the Leap. So this is the Leap. It's an infrared beam controller and super easy to install. You just run the software, plug it in, USB, super easy, and essentially when you move your hand, there's above it, you are able to track your motion up, down, left, right, front, back. You can also assign various note values to each of these cubes. So let's talk first about AeroMIDI. So this is the software. The way I have it set up here, if I go to edit mode, you can see I've made a cube, and you go into the properties section of the cube, and in here you have the ability to assign CC values to your X position, which is your left to right, and in this case I have it CC 30. Your Y from bottom to top is the value 2, and value 3, CC 3 is your front to back for the Z. And it makes it really easy here for doing MIDI mapping with the train button. So in Ableton, I have a track that I've been working on with a project of mine, and it's sort of a secret, so I'm not going to tell you about it. You'll just have to wait. But I've got this, where is it? This Max for Live patch here, and it's a granulator, and I've thrown a audio sample of a vocal recording into here. If I just play a note, got it sent out to a nice big reverb as well. And so what I've done here is I've used the AeroMIDI software, tab back over, to map various parameters on the granulator here to correspond to my hand motion. So the way that I did this is in Live you do Apple M, or you can click up here on the MIDI button, and now anything here that is showing up as shaded purple is mappable. So you can see here I've mapped the grain control and the spray control and the amount of AM modulation. So I'm just going to undo these for now and show you guys how that works. So basically I go back over to my AeroMIDI controller. So it's super easy, right? You first go through and you make a cube. You just hit new and it makes a new cube in here. You select the cube in edit mode. You click on it, turns red. Click on properties. Now you have, it brings open your properties box. So for the notes section, I've set it up to play C5. So when I engage with the cube, it actually is going to go ahead and play a C5 note, which is going to trigger this granulator note. And as long as I'm staying within the cube, and you'll see this in a second, it's going to hold that note down. So for the left to right, I have it assigned here as a CC30. Let's just change that to CC1. Right. And now if I click on grain, which I'm going to want to assign, and I hit train, it sends a continuous long signal of that 1-1. So I don't have to sit here and try to move my hand left and right with the Leap controller. I can just opt to have it send that motion. So now I'm going to hit stop. And what else did I have mapped here? I had the spray mapped, and I'm going to go back to the AeroMIDI. And I'm going to assign the spray to be the range from bottom to top. So when I move my hand up and down, it's going to do the spray. And you can see here that it shows up on there the value. Right? So now the front to back position is going to be the amount of AM modulation. And I am going to hit train. And now that shows up here. So now that I have this trained and mapped and assigned here, I'm going to get out of MIDI map mode. So Apple M on a Mac, or you can just click on the MIDI. You know, in Ableton, there's 3 ways of doing everything, 3 or 4 ways. You can go up here and undo, you know, edit MIDI mapping, etc. So now that I have that mapped, I get out of the properties mode, I get out of edit mode, and now I'm in a performance mode. So you can see here on the AeroMIDI when I make motions with the lead controller, and now I'm inside. I move X and Y, and you can see as I do that, it changes the grain. You can see the value of the grain moving. As I move up and down, right, you just got to make sure you stay in the box if you want it to be held down. So engage it. It's basically like working with a theremin. So you have front and back, up and down, and left and right, and all those are mapped. And so what I've done here for our track is I actually went through and I actually set up a new audio track. Command-T makes a new audio track, and I've chose the output of this granulator track to be the input for this new audio track. And I'm going to put record enable on here, and I'm going to just leave the granulator on currently, because I don't necessarily want to record the MIDI information here. I just want to record these sounds. So basically what I've already done in this track, if I'm taking the finished cooked project out of the oven, just to play this for you, you can hear I recorded a bunch of takes going through and freaking out on this, and I'll record some now. And then I went through and mined it and spread it out throughout the track. But what I'll do now is, just for the sake of this, I'm going to play around a little bit with this and do a recording. So one thing you can do here is just hit the record enable, and I'll just call this here Ghost Voice Granulator. Alright, so now that I'm going to bring this up so you can see what's happening as it's happening. So now, and I'll go here as well and click on this so you can see the action down below. So basically I just go and record enable on the top, and now all my motions are being recorded. And I can experiment with this and get some really cool, weird sounds based on that. You can map this to anything. Okay, so I got some stuff there. I'm just going to stop this. Alright. And you can see it also went through and it recorded all of my, because I had the global parameter up on the top here, it actually recorded the automation here. So if I wanted to, I could have record enabled both of these tracks and recorded the audio on one track and then recorded the MIDI to go back and deal with it later. You know, and now you can see here, this is the automation for the granulators recorded. But if I solo this now and I listen, right, and let me route that out to that same reverb. All right, I've recorded some nice, surreal, trippy vocal chopped up stuff that I can go through and mine, stitch together something that works really well in the arrangement. And I've just found this to be a really fun way of experimenting. You just chuck anything into a granulator, map a number of different parameters here, and you get a very interesting, sensitive, sort of spatial instrument. You know, I have a friend who's worked before with doing this kind of thing using those infrared beam controllers. But this is, you know, basically a very small portable one that, you know, very light. It looks no bigger than a USB thumb drive, and the possibilities with this are incredible. So, you know, some of the things that I've also been experimenting with is actually using the software VDMX. It's a VJ software application, and you can go in here and actually similarly assign MIDI parameters to control videos that are playing, or clips, effects, all sorts of things. So for example, I just have a video clip here, and I'm just going to right click on here and choose MIDI detect on the position of the video clip. I'm going to go back to AeroMIDI, go to the properties, and I'm going to use the actual left to right here and hit train, and so now it's been trained so that when I move it left to right, it'll scroll through there. And I'm going to just go in here and add an effect like, let's see, let's do a Chord Composer patch. There's some really cool stuff. We can get this down, rut etch effect, and maybe I'll map the wet dry here with a MIDI detect, and I'll use the train button on here as well. And so now I'm going to close the properties, get out of this edit mode, and now when I control this, right, you can see it's moving and adjusting. Visuals are reacting. The position of the visuals, so I have a video clip here, and it's similarly adjusting the dry wet of this effect that I have on, and similarly it's also still loaded up here in Ableton, and it's open, so that now I'm not only triggering audio, but I'm controlling the video and the video effect. So I can get more, I have an X position here. I'll use MIDI detect, and I'm going to go back in here. And why don't I just go into edit mode, and I'll map the X to that. I'll do the Y position, right click, MIDI detect, train the Y to do that. Stop. And then right click the Z position, MIDI detect, train that guy. So now I get out of my edit mode, and now when I move it, all these different parameters, and you know what, I'm going to undo the wet dry on this and disable all data sources and just make it all the way wet so that you can see this completely. And bring this window to the forefront so you can really see everything here. Maybe I'll do something different with scan lines even. Yeah, so I've created this sort of audio-visual instrument now using these two softwares. The thing that's nice about VDMX is if I have a second monitor, I can put this image full screen on the second monitor and have that sent out to a projector. You can do the same thing with Ableton, actually. It has the ability to run video in there. You have to run video stuff out of your arrangement view, but you can map located points. But that's a whole other discussion. So I can actually get a whole audio-visual type of situation going where everything is responding to the motions that I'm doing captured by this lead controller. So the big key of the puzzle here, though, is the AeroMIDI software, and you can get really creative with this and add as many of these cubes as you want in here, and it's definitely, I highly recommend getting in there and playing around with this. I've had a lot of great results experimenting with it, and yeah, check it out. It's pretty cool what you can do now, because this technology wasn't available, and these leaps are incredibly affordable, and paired with AeroMIDI software and Ableton Live or VDMX, you can really do some interesting stuff. So on that note, thanks for checking it out, and enjoy.